Going ape with Everett Barilla the Gorilla. Welcome to the latest episode of the Going Ape podcast. It's Everett Barilla the Gorilla with you. This week's been a bit of a crazy week. Got the chance to head on down to Mattamy Athletic Center, aka the former Maple Leaf Gardens, to check out the Grand Slam of Curling's Players Championship. We also got to sit down and interview Colin Hodgson, the lead on Team Carruthers, who also happens to be the owner and CEO of Dynasty Apparel, where we talked about his company, as well as how the team is doing their first year together with the addition of former provincial rival Mike McEwan. And of course, if you have a conversation with Colin, odds are you're going to talk about his hair. I know I've tried for years. Somehow the hair always manages to be a talking point in a conversation with him. But not living in the GTA for the last 5 months, moving back recently, you forget about how terrible morning traffic really is. And also that apparently down by Mattamy and Ryerson, there's basically no more public parking spots. It took me 30-45 minutes, so safe to say I was a little late for the 8:30 draw. Heck, I ran into one of the players who had a pretty short game, Rasmus Rana, who I interviewed last year. If you want to listen to that interview, you can head on over to soundcloud.com/ebarilla. It's there for you to check out. Had to joke around going, why did you win so fast? I didn't even get the chance to get myself in the building. You got a good laugh out of that. Congratulated him on winning the World Championships back on Sunday in Lethbridge, Alberta. Went inside, bought my tickets for the day, sat down, snapped some pictures. I'll post those up on my Facebook page a little bit later on today. But it was interesting being down there and not being a volunteer. I usually am. Couldn't commit to it this year because I was still out in the prairies when the application came out, and it goes quickly. A big shout out to the volunteers who do it. It really is a thankless job. Pivy is heading it up once again. Last of the original organizers from when I started a few years back. Really great job from what I saw yesterday. But not just that, it was weird being down there, not for the entire week, but just for the one day. But it was really cool to get the chance to see people I'd volunteered with in the past, get to see some friends I had made with other fans. And you can never say enough good things about Hans, the curling superfan. Love those get-ups and outfits, buddy. It's always a treat to head on down there and see teams like you've never heard of before. In this case, this year, it was Team Stern. They're from Switzerland. Or see teams for the first time like Robin Silvernagels, who curl out of North Battleford, Saskatchewan, so pretty close to a lot of friends and family I have out there. And it's never a bad thing to see former world champs like Kui and Gushu, top teams like Hasselborg, as well as the reigning world champs like Team Taranzoni and Team Adine. Oh, and you cannot forget about the legend himself, the best of the Howard family, sorry Russ, the one and only Glenn Howard. Alright, I know you all are tuning in to hear what Colin has to say, so let's get to it. Here's my interview with one of the best leads in curling today, Colin Hodgson. How do you go from being a culinary student and, basically a chef to owning and operating a curling apparel company?
Well, I think everybody kind of understands now that culinary world is a difficult profession to be in. So, I did that I was in kitchens for almost 10 years, and it became quite monotonous, and the money's not very good. It's very very difficult to you have to work hard, and you have to be willing to have some pretty crazy hours, and I just wasn't able to do that anymore. And the opportunity to start an apparel company just kind of fell in my lap after a few choice beverages with my current business partner. So I never in a million years thought I was going to be making clothing. Even 5 years ago, that was never on my radar.
Like, is owning and operating that company easier for you to manage while being an elite curler than obviously being a chef, where you'd have to pick up and go everywhere every so often for curling?
Yeah, 100%. It just wasn't feasible to be trying to cook and to be accountable to the people who are in the kitchen. So that just wasn't feasible anymore, not only financially, but it just made it too difficult, and I was leaving people on the hook that, with work I should have been doing. So that was kind of the catalyst in deciding to start the apparel company. And every elite curler or I guess professional curler, as professional as you can be.
I mean, you guys aren't like on contracts or anything like that. That would necessarily really classify, like, you're not paid necessarily to curl. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. No.
So when you think of the definition of a professional athlete, I think most of you guys are at that realm, but
yeah, we're not quite not quite there in our sport yet, but we're getting closer to it. But yeah, just having flexibility with the job that you can do while on the road is extremely important. So there's pros and cons to it, of course. Being at the events, you have to be more accountable, but it's because the people you're making the apparel for are here playing, and you want them to perform as well. If you're in my position, so having a job, a secondary career is important because our sport isn't quite at the level of professionalism yet.
Was it difficult for you to get teams on board originally to either be sponsored by you guys or to have you guys design and sell their jerseys, or were they pretty easy going, like, yeah, I'm on board? Or
it wasn't as difficult as I thought it would be. There were, a few teams right off the hop that just, they needed support too as well. So teams like Nicholas Dean and Chelsea Carey, Carrie Ainerson's team, those were three of our very first teams that pretty blindly, Val Sweeting was another one, they pretty blindly just decided, yeah, I'm gonna go with Colin, and there were some growing pains for sure, but right off the hop, those four teams helped us out, and through the growing pains, we established relationships with these teams that have festered for 5 years, and those teams use word of mouth to talk to other ones that we cared about the teams we were working with. We weren't just looking to get paid. We went through a lot of growing pains, and they helped us through that, and we 100% wouldn't be the company we are now without those teams just jumping on board and trying something new.
Are there any teams that still haven't quite jumped on board with you guys yet, that you don't sort of design and sell their jerseys, or?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, we do have some competitors, and those competitors they drive us to be better at what we do as well. So without having that friendly competition going on,
well, otherwise you just get lazy, right?
Of course, we don't want to be complacent. I certainly don't want to be complacent. We need to keep pushing the boundaries of the sport with how the athletes look and how the apparel feels, and not only for the athletes but for fans to be able to have apparel that they know is the official gear that these teams are wearing, that's made for them. I think it creates a nice connection between the fans and those teams.
During the provincial championships there, I guess you did an interview with the Winnipeg Sun where you were saying you almost need to downsize the company. You either got to grow it or got to downsize it. What would growing it essentially be at this point?
What we're really focusing on at this point is focusing on the fans. The first 4 or 5 years of our company, we really focused on the elite curling teams and even the up and coming curling teams. Lots of juniors all across not only Canada but throughout the world. And we've got all these teams we have a lot of teams wearing the apparel. So now I think we need to take a step back, pivot, and focus on things that curling fans actually want, because they're the important ones now. If we want the sport to continue to grow, we need to build more interaction between fans and the teams at the actual venues. Every other sport does it, so there's a reason why if you go to a hockey game, in Winnipeg, you have the whiteout, and you go to Calgary and it's a sea of red. It builds pride, and I think that's what we really want to tap into. Yeah. Financially, that makes a lot of sense for our company, but not only that, I didn't just put all this time and effort into creating a company that just makes some profit. The point of doing all this is to make some sort of change in the game, or to leave some sort of legacy on the sport, that we did something that changed how people looked at it. That's, I think, better than winning some curling games. It's more important to me, at least.
Yeah. I mean, you had your shop there at the provincial championships, which is only a few hours away from Winnipeg, where your head office would be. is there sort of that plan to, I know here at the Grand Slam events, there's always the Gold Line store. Is your plan to sort of branch into that somehow, or?
You know, ideally we would have our apparel in the events, but there's all sorts of there's a lot of great sponsors for the sport, and Gold Line's one of them. They're a phenomenal sponsor of our sport, and they have the rights. They've acquired the rights to be in the venues, and that's very important. For me as a competitor, that's something I would want to do, of course. But we need more of that. At every event, whether it's provincial events or Briars or Scotties. And, if we have the items that people want, then I think it's inevitable that they're going to find their way into these events.
I mean, you do have sort of the agreement in place to do the provincial and the national events for designing the jerseys and selling the merchandise for that. How has that impacted business for you guys? I mean, obviously the Manitoba hats were very popular when the Briar this past year was in Brandon, so
yeah, of course. It's having those contracts that was kind of the next big step. We took a big risk in trying to acquire it. We're a small company. I think we're a smaller company than people imagine. So for us to take on things like this, it's very difficult to pull them off. Whether it's financially or just having the actual manpower to make sure that we can deliver on these items. So the Briar was a massive learning experience, finding a unique item like these hats, how they resonated not only with curlers but just fans of the province, and that's kind of where we're going with this. We want to be able to cater to that and make people feel pride, and especially people from outside the sport getting involved with curling. If they can tie into a uniform design or a specific type of hat, why not? That'll bring more people in.
It got me cheering for Team Dean right off the hop. Just
absolutely, and that's a really great story. That
I come from Icelandic heritage, and I'm very against the horns on the jerseys, but
yeah,
in the inaccuracy. But I mean, sort of seeing that, and sort of even just seeing how they've branded themselves with like any event they do, it's always with like sort of the hashtag the Viking way.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever gotten into the idea of, because again, you sell the jerseys, you sell apparel with the Dynasty logo on there. Have you gotten into the idea of selling merchandise sort of specifically towards the team? So it'd be like a Nicholas Edin like team sweater or something that's not as expensive as the jacket.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those can get up there in cost.
100%. We want to get there as quickly as possible. There's obviously some obstacles we have to get over. Being a small company and not having the resources that we would like to have for items like that. I'd love to stock everything in the world, but to have the storage area and the cost of inventory is just, it's not always feasible. So we're really working on ways to get to that as quickly as we can, hence needing to downsize one piece of our company that takes up a lot of our time. We're going to try to become more efficient and focus on the things that we really need to, so that we can continue to grow sustainably.
Is there a team that tends to, I guess, net you more profit, or is more of the popular ones that you guys
I might not touch on the profit side of things, but
I mean the one that sort of people want, and the one that people want the merchandise for, or the one like the jerseys that sell the best.
Yeah, clearly the Edin design resonates with a lot of people. The colors are pretty classic Swedish colors in curling fans' minds, at least, and we almost wanted just to go more cartoonish because well, I mean,
their logo now is a little bit more on that sort of cartoonish design than the more serious sort of looking one.
That's a very unique one. That's a mural at the curling club where Rasmus Rana's from. Wow. Someone actually created that mural, and they were able to get us a digital file so that we could put it into the uniforms. So we're actually creating something from their club, and we're bringing it to the ice and bringing it to television, and that's really cool. We need more of that.
Is that the current design they wear now, or is it the older one?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Let's say the other one looks like the one looks like a really badass one, the original one they wore a few years ago.
Yeah, that's our most popular. So,
so like, talk about like with the fans and that, curlers seem to have a really good reputation amongst, compared to other athletes, where as a whole there aren't really many negative incidences or people that are heavily disliked.
I think people need to remember that curlers are regular people generally with regular jobs. We just happen to live in, dozens of different countries, but we all meet at these events and we spend a lot of time together. So I think that's a little bit of, I guess the product that you get where people know each other, and I guess the camaraderie within our sport kind of fuels that. Everybody, in a way, is expected to treat fans and especially, kids and
well, especially the kids.
People around.
Be a dick to me, that's one thing, but you don't really be a dick to like a 5-year-old kid when you're trying to grow the sport.
Yeah, and no one's going to do that because it's almost like a little bit of an unwritten code that you treat people with respect, and the sport is very Canadian. And very Scottish, and that's.
I was going to say, this is one we didn't actually create.
We didn't create this one, no, but it's very.
We mastered it. We didn't create it.
If you look at a couple of those countries, the Swedes, the Norwegians, there's a very respectful nature within our sport, and I think that's something that we've preserved very well over the years, and. It's going to continue. We can't spend as much time with each other at all these events and not respect each other. So I think it's a wonderful part of our game, and I'll probably just say it's a wonderful part of our game.
Well, like with all the interaction with fans and that, do you sometimes end up like, if somebody is sort of being standoffish from fans, do other players sort of remind them like, hey, like try to put on a bit of a smile, or is it just sort of let sleeping dogs lie?
You know what? I haven't seen very many instances where fans have got on anyone, but I 100% encourage fan interaction. I would love to see more hecklers. I would love to see more, because, if everybody's sitting quietly in an arena,
well, it makes for doing interviews a little easier.
It makes for doing interviews easier, but if everybody's sitting quietly in an arena, I'll wait till they're done here. If everyone's sitting quietly in an arena, we're not going to create the environment that's going to want to draw new fans to the sport. So, as a player, and I know we've talked about this a lot, amongst ourselves in the in the locker rooms or at breakfast when we're sitting with other teams. But I think everybody's super happy with there being more noise, having the kids here and being a little bit more rowdy. And in some places they're very rowdy. And
some of the players are just pretty rowdy there. Hamilton from Team Schuster. Mm-hmm. I don't believe they're here this week.
No.
He's a bit of a character out there.
Yeah.
Darren from Team Botcher. Mm-hmm. I now consider him sort of the Canadian version, especially after the Skins jumping in like. Yeah. Cooley has the last shot against him. Well, there's nothing I can do. I'm going to go jump into the crowd, eat chips and popcorn with the fans while they're doing that shot.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that kind of stuff is good for our sport. We're going to have to get out of the current mold where people are expected to sit respectfully in the stands. Like, bring noisemakers. I don't care. That's awesome. The only thing is when it really negatively affects you is something like having a flash camera right behind the sheet. Things like that. Those are maybe unwarranted distractions, but you can't have that at any sporting event. You can't go to a Major League Baseball game and have the pitchers throwing the flash cameras. You can't have...
it's so well lit in there, you don't need the flash.
Exactly, yeah. So, I'm all for fan interaction. I haven't really seen any instances where people have been overboard. For us, so we got to be, if we want to be professional athletes, we got to be okay with people, razzing us. You have to have thick skin. So the more professional we become, the better it's gonna.
Just like players being in bad moods, sort of like not wanting to interact with people for one reason or another. Volunteered at a few of these events, and I've seen where it happens, where they just either find a back way out or just sort of skip the autograph queue and. Mm-hmm. it's understandable at points. I mean,
yeah, and again, people have to remember, everyone is like human beings here. Is when you have hard losses, people deal with it in different ways, and I think generally, though, there's not a player out here that I know that would skip out on someone, for an extended period of time. You're always going to sign autographs. It's, some of those tough moments are the moments that, you need to get a pass on at times.
Well, I've seen some people, they lost a really tough one or whatever. Like, I've seen some people that were almost like, you'd almost see they almost want to tear up, but they're still in that autograph line. They're they're putting on the smile. I mean, you don't see that with a lot of sports. They don't have that option really to interact with people like they do at some of these.
Yeah, and I deal with it maybe differently than other people. When we have tough losses, it makes me feel better that people still want to get your autograph or still want to say, good effort out there, and that's helpful for me. But I might operate a little differently than someone else who just needs to go, spend some time, some silent time after the game. So,
I mean, one of the things that you guys went through at going into this Olympic cycle was you had a change of player. He went and joined Team Dunstone. You added one of the best skips there is in Mike McEwan. How do these changes occur? Obviously with the Olympic cycle is usually when it all happens, but how do you decide who's out? Who are you going to try to bring in? How does that all go about?
I think naturally these conversations happen naturally. Like, we spend a lot of time with people, and
there's no tampering in curling. There's no rule against tampering.
There's no tampering in curling, no. I think it's pretty obvious when a team kind of runs its course and everybody kind of feels the same way. We manage ourselves. We don't have team managers who do anything. So you have to have those tough conversations like, yes, we want to switch it. No, we don't. These are the reasons why. And in our situation, having four guys in the same province is huge. We spend more time together playing, and we can practice together.
You'd almost want a little bit of time apart maybe in there too, right?
Yeah, I guess there could be, but we knew we needed something fresh. We were kind of knocking on the door for a lot of years, but we didn't have, we weren't winning those big games, and Mike's a big game player, so it'd be pretty impossible to not take on a guy like Mike if he wanted to play with you.
I was like, were you looking at Mike when the team decided to go their separate ways, or what? Like, did you know? His name's blanking on me here. I'm looking right at him too.
Braden?
Yeah, Braden. Looking right at him too. And did you know he was going to leave, or was it, you were bringing on Mike already, so he just sort of ended up being the odd man out?
Yeah, we committed to 4 years as a team, and once those 4 years were up, Braden has his own aspirations, and that's he lives in Saskatchewan. He wants to win a Brier from Saskatchewan. That's something that
that's a province that has a hard time keeping their players.
Yeah, and he wants to play there. So we have, our 4-year cycle kind of ran its course, and we ultimately didn't make our goals. So, as all four players, we all took a step back and decided, well, hey, what are we gonna? What do we want to do individually? Do we want to keep going? Do you want to put the 4 years in again? Do we think this group's the right group to do it? Do we want, Braden made a lot of sacrifices. He lived over 6 hours away from us, and he drove in for practices or flew in for practices. And, there's a lot of sacrifice made, and ultimately he wanted to, try something different, and good on him. So I think a lot of these decisions are a lot more mutual than people assume they are. Everybody has, we have respect for each other. These things don't go bad very often. It's just kind of, you shuffle the deck a bit.
Usually
you
they're
see
pretty
a lot
peaceful transitions for the most part, barring one incident. About 5 years ago now, the Overton-Clapton one there, that caused a bit of buzz when that one went down, but.
Yeah, for sure. And, a lot of the story doesn't get out to the public. So, it's very...
That's one of the benefits about curling is it's sort of a benefit and a drawback. You don't quite get that exposure where you're having all this stuff written up about you in a negative way, but at the same time, that exposure can bring people in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like if you look at what's going on right now, how many changes there were this season is, like I said, we shuffle the deck. We try to see how it works. Personality on teams and working together in that way is almost as important as being a good shot maker. So, you need to find the right mix, and then once you find that right mix, then you can start to really work on dialing in the little things.
Briar was in your guys' neighborhood. Not exactly the result you guys wanted. The first game there in the 8th end, facing a difficult situation against Saskatchewan. Out of nowhere, you seem to see this slash run back or run back slash. I'm not sure how you want to phrase that one there. I mean, you even had one of the greatest curlers of all time in Russ Howard sitting up there going, I don't think it's there. I don't know if you've watched that back.
I haven't actually watched it, no.
He's sitting there going, it might be able to make. It's not the shot I'm going with.
Well,
where did you sort of see that shot from? Because nobody really saw that until you came up and went like, well, there's this.
Well, when you look at the situation, we were in a losing situation. So
yeah, that was a little weird going 10%, 20%. I'm still not sure where Mike and Reed got those percentages from, but
yeah, I don't know. I think the percentage kind of came. That one might have been a little made up, but at the same time, maybe the made up portions were high because you're not winning that situation very often. And I was a skip pretty much my whole life, skipper, backhand player, and before I played with Team Carruthers, I had never even, I don't know if I ever even played a game of lead in my life. So I'm always out there with the mentality of a skip, but sometimes I even put too much input into the other end. But in that situation, we look at it like we're probably losing here anyway. So what are the odds? We have to make something, and nobody could really come up with any other shot.
Yes, I think that draw wouldn't have really. That was a pretty tough draw even for Mike.
I don't think there's another shot to score. So you might as well take a chance.
Score now or. And it's not going to go well.
I took a look at the shot and I saw it was framed up. If you sliced it through the hole, you couldn't miss it. That's the only thing,
And then you definitely possibly would have been handshakes at that point.
Of course, yeah. And it's Mike freaking McEwan. Like, I've seen him make that shot against us lots, and he's a guy that he relishes those moments where he can play that kind of shot. So it's. We needed something. Even if we made the shot and lost the game, like we had that moment with the fans. Like, that was electric.
Bloody Premier was in the crowd there, and they showed the camera on him trying to explain to somebody, sort of, I guess this is what they're going to try to do. And it's like, well, let's see what Premier Pallister thought.
Brian didn't like my call before we played the shot, but he certainly liked it after. So,
did he talk to you guys about that afterwards with you guys at all, or no? Because he was mixed curler in the past there.
Oh yeah. We actually know him. He's from the Portage area, and that's where my business partner's from. They played sports growing up together, so I've met him quite a bit.
That works out well.
He was our flag bearer one game, which was pretty cool. He came and carried the flag out, and it was a good time. But yeah, that was one of the most amazing experiences I've had on the ice. Just sharing that with the fans when people get excited for what you're doing out there, and the building goes nuts. And it is
about as home ice as you can get representing Manitoba in Brandon there. So
I was lucky.
Home ice for Mike there. They kept mentioning he's from Brandon originally.
Yeah. Manitoba has embraced me as a Manitoban, which I'm very excited about because I was lucky enough, and then my first Brier was in Calgary, so I got to go home and have my home Brier, but I wasn't on the Alberta team. And that was a pretty great experience, but...
Is that sort of how you ended up in Winnipeg? Reed and the team asked you to come out there, or was it always your plan to sort of move over to Manitoba and a rink there somewhere?
I moved to Manitoba because Reed and I played Call of Duty together. That's a story that's not told very often.
How has that not ended up somehow on Benny's sheet show? How is that story not coming out?
I don't know if Ben knows that story. Reed and I we played Call of Duty online 1 year, quite often, to be honest, with Johnny the Hammer Chow, the guy from the Curling Canada commercials.
Oh, okay.
We were in a clan together, and we played lots of Call of Duty, and Reed was pretty bad at COD when we started, and and I made him a lot better, that's for sure, after all the beaking. But that's kind of how we got to know each other as friends, and I moved to Winnipeg without a team. There was rumors that maybe McEwan's team was going to break up, and Team Stoughton, it was almost certain that team was going to break up, or some guys were going to retire. So it was a really good opportunity. And in Alberta, I was banging my head against a wall. I wasn't experienced enough. So I said, I'm not ready to be a back-end player at the elite level. So let's move to Manitoba, see where the cards fall. If I wasn't going to get on a good team, I'd probably just move back. But fortunately, I was able, Reed and Derek brought me onto the team, and later afterwards we ended up picking up Braden. So that wasn't, it was definitely never in the cards to move to Winnipeg. And it was one of the best decisions of my life, because I absolutely love the city.
I've had some good times when I've been to Winnipeg those few times.
Yeah, it's a hidden gem, absolutely.
Went to a Jets game when I was working in Altona Winkler, and I'm a Capitals fan, so I went there when the Capitals were playing, and I wasn't even, because it was a really good game, it was a shootout win for the Caps. I wasn't sure I would get to my car a couple blocks away in one piece. Fans there, if the Jets score a goal, you can't even hear yourself think in that arena.
No, it's awesome. Jets games are the bomb. I'm a big Flames fan, but the Jets are my second team.
I think I've been to five different NHL arenas, and Winnipeg ranks up there with Montreal. When Montreal scores and it's a packed house, not that same deafening I can't hear myself think, but it's just a party there when they score a goal.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty awesome.
So with this new team though, the year started off pretty good. You guys got to the finals of one of the Grand Slams. The rest of the year has been a little hit and miss. How do you guys sort of address that going forward and try to possibly win this event here? You guys are up one win as of this interview.
Yeah. Starting a new team, we have two teams from Manitoba that are quite successful for many years here, and we come from very different ideologies of the game and how to approach it. And there's so many little nuances in the sport that some people don't realize. Just how do you approach everything within the sport? It's what you're eating, when you're eating it, what team functions are you doing
some
together.
Weird teams like that, you don't eat. If we have a game at this, you don't eat it's 3 hours before you have to eat before that. Anything after that, no eating. Some weird rules I've seen pop up. That Netflix, what the heck was that one called? Something to do with the Losers. Your brand is...
Losers. Yeah, with Pat Ryan. That was
Pat
awesome.
Ryan, and that stuff sort of dates back to him, where he really laid down the law and said, you're not going to be out drinking with the opposing team. That rule doesn't seem to be followed from my experience around here, but... and your brand is actually seen in that Netflix thing too. You can see that Dynasty Curling logo in there.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Free advertising there.
Yeah, I think the big thing is this year was about finding our identity as a team, and it wasn't always pretty. We've had some success. We won, I don't know how many events we've won. We've won 4 or 5 events this year, and we haven't qualified in 6. And so we don't really have a middle ground. We're either really good or really bad. And that's, I think that's just a product of not, of really just needing to figure each other out. And, Mike's been around for a long time, and he brings a wealth of experience, and same with Reed, and they've had very different experiences over the years. So finding out what's going to work for this team, there's no right or wrong answer here. It's just finding out what's working for us. Yeah, and figuring out what our processes are going to be and how we're going to move forward with it. And we've had, over the last couple of months, through success and failure, we've had some really honest conversations, which are not easy to have with people. We all like each other. We know that. Yeah. But
it's also scary when, a guy like Fry is, he became a free agent there for a little bit. Was there any panic there where it's do we try to pick this guy up? Or?
No, I don't think there's any panic.
I don't think you guys were at that point where it's okay, we're dropping somebody this quick already again.
No, the four of us, like I said, we truly enjoy each other's company. We like each other. Off the ice, we have had, I think, what's been one of the most enjoyable years of curling I've ever had in my life. We all like food. We go to wonderful restaurants. We plan that out.
I was almost going to ask, do you cook for them on the road?
Sometimes we have Airbnbs. When we have Airbnbs, we cook for each other. Mike's a great cook, and his obsession for coffee has definitely changed how I look at how what coffee I'm having, or what we're putting
no
into our
straight
bodies.
Tim Hortons double doubles, eh?
Not often, not unless I need it. So I don't know. I do enjoy the odd Tims. I just enjoy trying new things and finding new beans and new roasts and things like that, and just expanding on it. So consistency's good, but also I'm a big fan of stepping outside the box. But just enjoying each other's company off the ice hasn't been a problem. It's how are we going to function on the ice. And if it's like baseball, if you go out there with the same approach all the time, if you're a pitcher or a hitter, you're going to get exploited. So we're going to need to constantly change. How are we throwing the rock? How can we get better? How can we get better at sweeping? What's our, what are our weaknesses, and how are we going, to remove those exploitations that people have been, taking out on us a bit this year? And we've been working through things and changing it all year, and for some of the events has worked, and some we haven't found the right balance. And it's just spending those times and having the honest conversations and being vulnerable to your teammates is probably the hardest thing to do, is saying, look, I'm not good at this. How do I get better? Everybody has to have an ego to be a good athlete. I think you have to have an ego, but you have to also know when to put it away. And it's balancing that with your teammates. It's the hardest.
I mean, you guys are all from Manitoba, which is a rarity for a team to be from the same province, or in the case of Ontario, from the same area of the province. Northern Ontario divided in the Brier. And residency and student exemption became a bit of a hot button topic at one point there around the provincials. Do you see that rule changing to strengthen it, or to strengthen sort of everybody having to be from that one area, or do you feel it's just going to get to the point where you can play with anybody?
I think we have an identity crisis in our sport right now. We have to decide what we're going to be. Do we need all of our teams to be from the same province, or all our players to be from the same province to play at the Brier and the Scotties? Mm-hmm. Do you want that? Do you need that for the tribalism for people, or do we want to field the best teams to be performing on the world stage? We have to decide, because the answer to that's not the same thing. Yeah. The rest of the world caught up. I think Canadian curling fans are maybe a little under the impression that we're still the best country in the world for curling at every event we're at, which that's not necessarily...
Both worlds sort of... expose that, and the Olympics expose that pretty well as well.
Absolutely, yeah. We do have some of the best teams in the world. Canadians, men's and women's teams can win the world championships, but I think the fact that we expect them to and put the pressure on them to all the time to win every event, it's unreasonable now. You have De Cruz in Switzerland and Edin in Sweden. You have Muirhead. You have all these great. You have three great Scottish men's teams that are young right now. Like, they're very young, and they're going to be playing for the next 10, 15, 20 years.
I'm just trying to think of who the third one is. Two of them are here today. Both played this morning. I'm just trying to think. Peterson, Moat. Who's the third one from Scotland there?
Patterson, Moat, and...
Is it one of the Muirheads, or...
Smith. They just went to the Olympics.
Smith, there you go.
There you go. So
I almost forgot about them when I saw them play last year, I think. So
yeah, we have a bit of an identity crisis. So I think whatever we decide to do, I'm good with. I don't... we're not changing our team. We didn't pick 4 players in the province because we strongly believe in tribalism. Yeah. We picked the players because we like this team. We think this is the lineup that we can win a lot with. And we don't need to go out of province for that. That's not to say that bringing in someone from a different province isn't gonna be helpful. I moved. I came from Alberta to go to Manitoba. So
well, I mean, just looking down right from where we're at, nobody on Team Cooey who's represented Alberta countless times at the Brier. Their new lineup, not one person is originally from there.
Do curling fans care? If Team Cooey decides that they want to represent Alberta and they're going to do what it takes to actually legally represent the team from there, do curling fans really care if they say, I want to wear, the Wild Rose on my back? Like, we're your team. Yeah. Isn't that a good thing? If you want to play from Saskatchewan, I think...
Well, I mean, two of them are playing from Saskatchewan right down there, and Benny and...
There you go.
Flash, so... Maybe it's a good thing Braden went back there to try to win the Brier for them, because nobody else seems to be going back there to help them.
I think we just need to sort out what do we want, and there's no easy answer here. I think the fact that people care about they blindly cheer for their province, that's a great thing. That's something you don't see very often, and that might be the magical part of the Brier and the Scotties. I believe it is. So sure, let's keep it the same, but if we're going to do that, then we're going to have to be okay with teams not necessarily winning every international competition, which again I think is a good thing for the sport. In Canada, it's always been big, but we need... It's
nice if there's actually some kind of competition. If Canada's just flat out, then what's the point of watching it if the likelihood of them winning is...
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a 99.999% chance Cooey is going to beat a team from, say, not North Korea, but South Korea. What's the point of tuning in to watch that game then?
Sure.
You want it to be competitive. You want to sit there and... where Cooey has to make these difficult shots because that team has elevated themselves to that point.
We went to Japan in December, and it was an amazing experience to see how much Japanese cared about their curlers. And these were people who maybe haven't even tried curling in their entire life, how passionate the fans were and the social media around it. And that's brilliant. We need more of that. I'm
just remembering last year, the team that represented South Korea, or they represented Korea as a whole, they decided for the Olympics. Like, out of nowhere, they end up with a silver medal. Mm-hmm. And when they were here, fortunately I wasn't here that day, but all I was told was this one half the arena was just packed of people from South Korea. Yeah. Like the whole Korean society came out and supported them. That's just amazing.
Yeah, let's focus on that. Let's if we're Canadian, in my opinion, if we're Canadian and we want to show that we can be world leaders as far as spreading a wonderful, very Canadiana sport. If we want that to grow throughout the world, we're going to have to sacrifice something, and I think it's okay to lose at times.
The student exemption rule is another thing that sort of popped up in Ontario here with Team Homan, given that she and her husband reside, as well as Joanne Courtney and her husband both reside in Alberta. She is technically a student. Should that be tightened up on the definition of it? That, you have someone like Sarah Colton, who I guess actually plays for the University of Waterloo. You don't really see her pop up too much unless it's for the Scotties and the territory provincials. But can you really have a student exemption for somebody who's on the road that much?
Yeah, absolutely. I have zero qualm with that. If you say, what province is Rachel Homan from? She's represented Ontario since she was how old? 12, 14 years old?
Idea.
Rachel Homan's been winning
sooner for all I know.
So if
number one team in the world right now.
I think a piece of it that gets lost is that most of these players are playing out of their province for pride. Even if they're still playing and trying to represent where they're from. Yeah. I think it's a good thing. If I'm a curling fan, if I'm an Ontario curling fan, I'd be honored that Rachel Homan wants to represent us. So I don't have any issue with players playing out of province. We just need to define what it really means. So what, if I'm from Alberta, I played all my juniors there. Should I be eligible to play out of Alberta? I moved. I played 15 years of my curling in Alberta, and I've played 5 in Manitoba.
Almost treat this like a citizenship thing. You have to live here X amount before you can represent the province.
We just need a clear definition of how it is, because a lot of people are making a big deal about this. On the inside, from my perspective, I haven't seen this be an issue very much at all. In the 25 plus years I've curled.
So that does factor into when you're trying to make a team and you're told one out of province player.
Sure.
How do you make that work?
Of course, it's a factor, right? And everyone who's legally curling is playing within the rules, so it's more of a rules problem.
Yeah,
it's a rules problem.
Do you see the rules changing in any way, shape, or form that way?
If we're gonna make new rules about this, we better be very clear on understanding what the implications of those rules are, because there could be some very negative effects that are maybe not foreseen at the moment about just simply saying that you need all 4 players to play in there.
People have jobs and everything factored in, right?
Of course, these are people's
whole
lives.
You can take on the road with you to a certain degree, so not everybody's gifted with that opportunity.
When people are playing out of province, generally they're making more sacrifice than people playing within province. That's a fact. There's a lot of work you have to do to make sure that you're eligible to play within the province. And there's a lot more travel involved too. It's not like we're just saying...
I can't imagine what Mark Kennedy's going to have to do next year, going from, I think it's Edmonton he's from, around that area, all the way down to... I think Jacobs curls out of the Sioux, right?
Yeah, and clearly Mark's not going to move to the Sioux.
I don't think he's moving, no.
I don't think we need to force people to make that big of a life-changing thing so they can just curl. That's crazy. If you look at your local team, your Montreal Canadiens. How many players are from Montreal? How many players live there outside of the season? How many there's people making a lot of sacrifices already. So
that's actually one of the reasons why players want to go play in California and Florida, so they can live there all year round.
Sure, I love California. It's a great place to be. I spend a month of
that was also
every
something
year
that
there.
You're a Jets fan. That's something that's also in the past deterred people from going to Winterpeg, to say the least, was the weather.
Yep.
And that was something people worried about with Bufflin re-signing there, but then they realized this guy loves to hunt and ice fish.
Yep.
Welcome to Manitoba.
Isn't that even better that someone's going to do that and put themselves through that, which is part of also Winnipeg culture. I absolutely love that.
I was hearing stories. He gets a helicopter with people and just lands somewhere, ice fishes, hops on the helicopter and goes back.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
If only you had that much money that you could afford to rent a helicopter rides to ice fishing.
I'd be game for that.
So, one of the things you're best known for, probably aside from your sweeping ability, the curling company, is, of course, the hair.
Yeah.
How did that sort of come about with adding all the designs? Almost every different event, you have a different design in there. How'd that all come about for you?
Where it really took off was at this event 3 years ago. This is my 3rd year in a row now where...
I'm just trying to remember which haircut that one was.
It would have been the tribal hair.
That's right, the tribal,
The tribal haircut.
The grill or tire marks, I couldn't remember which. I thought it was one, it turned out it was the other.
They were grill marks, yeah.
Grill marks.
I looked like a pineapple.
Tire treads. Yeah.
I looked like a pineapple, which was awesome. So 3 years ago, a good friend of mine, Brian Chick, he's involved with Boyd's Barbershop, and I'd come to Toronto, get some tight haircuts on the side, and go to a different place. Throne Barbershop works with a bunch of the Blue Jays and the Raptors. They get the haircut there, so it's a trendy place to go. So I kind of find it enjoyable to go and do something unique. And so we went to Boyd's, and I said, "Do whatever you want." And this is my 3rd year in a row of him doing whatever he wants. He's very talented, so it's fun. Hair,
it grows back pretty quick.
A hair tattoo. My hair will grow in 5 days. So. it's not
You'll
that
have a new one done in Saskatoon, I'm sure.
yeah, it's not that big of a sacrifice for my hair to, look a certain way for 5 days. But yeah, it's been.
Do you think that helps sort of with the help with the company at all? Your exposure through your hair?
Yeah, it definitely has.
You haven't gotten to the point where it just said, do the Dynasty Curling logo on the head, I'm going to curl.
I don't know if I'm going to do that. Maybe we'll do it at some point, but I haven't sold my hair for sponsorship rights yet.
I was going to say, like, one of your biggest sponsors is Princess Auto.
Yep.
I remember you were so happy when Hans, the curling superfan,
oh yeah,
across the way, finally did the Princess Auto in there. You haven't gotten around just for the heck of it saying Princess Auto it.
Yeah, it was awesome when Hans did that. He's so great for events. He'll have a Holiday Inn one.
He missed the night games, the one game, went to the Blue Jay game. He was all over Sports Center because he did the Blue Jay get up. Yep. I'm pretty sure the Blue Jays have used that since, and he gained some even bigger fame from that. And coincidentally, I think that also helped his exposure there, helped curling, because they mentioned, he does this all the time for curling.
Like I said,
tune in and see what wacky thing he does next.
Like I said, more fan interaction is a good thing. Having people be outrageous and making noise, whether it's how loud you are in the venue or how loud you look, it's great for our sport. Just any exposure is good exposure. When you can step outside of the box, I think it's a good thing, and I clearly like attention, so if it can also be used for the good of other people too, I'm game for that. So let's do something fun and let curlers enjoy being themselves more. I'm really interested.
I don't
in
think we have gotten to the point where a dean's gonna come out in like Sweeting color face paint yet.
Why not? I hope they do.
He's a pretty reserved guy. That's something more. I think I honestly think had Botcher won the Brier, you'd almost see Darren with like those like temporary Canada tattoos all over his face.
Sure, that'd be awesome. I'm all for it. If Darren wants to do that, he can do that.
Oh, we really need more people doing that. That'd be awesome.
Yep.
Then you're gonna have the people going, look, he's making an ass of himself. But
hey,
it's nice to have something different to watch, right?
You be you. That's all. Yeah. That's all I care about.
I was almost surprised you didn't, because that design for the Manitoba hats, I thought that would have looked good for a hair design. I'm almost surprised you didn't do that for the Brier.
I was thinking of doing it, but you kind of got to plan that out a little more. And generally, it's like going into a restaurant. I don't mind asking, like, what's your favorite dish on the menu? So when it comes to haircuts, I do the same thing. I don't cut hair. I'm just the one who gets my hair cut. So
I'm the worst person to get a hair. When I get a haircut, I was like, what do you want? Any suggestions? Whatever you want. Sure, just do this.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's pretty much what I do. I go in there and I say, hey, let me know what. Not even. I didn't even. This haircut I have right now, I just told him do whatever you want. So it's.
I've tried that. Fun. Not a lot of them are game for that. Not a lot of them are like, there it is, have at it. There's like, just tell me what you want.
That's why you gotta search them out. You gotta find the really great creative barbers out there.
Yeah,
I think I have one in almost every city in the country now.
Yeah, it just comes down to the cost of those barbers sometimes.
That's a beauty, isn't it? They normally charge about $25.
Well, I'm gonna need a list of those places then.
Sure, yeah, anytime.
All right, well, thanks for doing this, Colin.
Sure, yeah. Hopefully you get something good out of all that.
I cannot thank Colin enough for taking the time to sit and chat with me at the event. Also, cannot wait to see what the future holds for Dynasty Apparel, and of course, what the next hairstyle is going to be. If you want to check out everything Dynasty Apparel has to offer, you can head on over to dynastycurling.com or on social media outlets at Dynasty Curling. That'll do it for this episode of the Going Ape Shhh podcast. Just a reminder that you can follow us on Twitter at Barilla Gorilla, Facebook and Instagram at Barilla the Gorilla, or check out our blog and website barillathegorilla.ca. This is Everett Barilla the Gorilla, thanking you so much for tuning in and listening.